Welcome, my name is Jimmy and I've been working on this deck building tower defense game. And today I'm gonna tell you some things I like about it and some things that could take some improvement. Firstly, when enemies come at night, they just straight up steal your buildings. And I think that's really cool. Now it's important for this to understand that this is like the third time I tried to make this game, and the first two times both failed because of way too high scope. So I tried making it in Pico8 this time. Pico8 has a thing called a token limit. It basically just says if there's a certain amount of signs in your code, then you can no longer make the game any bigger, and this is where it is right now. So like the game is basically just done. Now this token limit can be a bit annoying. For me it mainly forced me to not focus too much on the enemies. Like it's really just there's a stat called evil, it goes up every day, and every night more enemies attack you if you have more evil. So there aren't really any like bigger or smaller waves or like any mini bosses or something along that line. Which is also good because events like that would have to be communicated with some like calendar or something like that, and it's all like it doesn't really need to exist, because what I wanted to do with this game is just focus on doing deck variety. Like I want a load of different viable decks. And I achieved this variety by just giving the player multiple ways to gain each resource. For example, for food, you have this card in the standard deck that just gives you some food. You have a bigger card that gives you more food but also some evil for it. You have a field card which lets you place fields, and you can click on every field once a day to get some food. You also have a little trap that you can just place somewhere, and when an enemy picks it up they die and you just get some food for it. There's also a meat grinder, and if enemies are killed in range of this meat grinder you also get some food. So just with food already you can see you could have a very draw heavy deck that uses all these food generating cards to support all the draw. You could also use structures to generate that food, which means you don't need the food generating cards in your actual deck, which means you get space freed up for defensive structures or maybe wood gain. Talking about wood gain. You have another card in your starting deck which turns some food into wood. You have a better version of that card that does the same thing but also draws another card. You have a card that gives you a lot of wood but also some evil, and it shuffles itself back into the draw pile, so you could play the card over and over and over again. And you also have Totem, a card that when it is in your hand gives you wood every time a card is removed. And then there's also this whole tree of cards that work with card removes, giving you draw and stuff like that. And for defenses, you've already seen the cannon in action this whole time, you've already seen traps, but there's also boom barrels which blow up when enemies touch them, which are really cool. There's also stun towers which slow enemies down in a certain radius around them. And here again you can just spam cannons, you can spam traps, you can spam boom barrels, you can protect your boom barrels with your traps, you can support your cannons with your stun towers, you can use your stun towers to clump up enemies in front of boom barrels so they blow up way more enemies at once. Then there's also the reward card, which lets you pick one of 3 cards to add to your deck, which is how all of these cards got added to your deck obviously, and you can add that card to your deck as well, so you could have a super thick deck that just uses a lot of those to adjust to whatever it needs to do in any turn. Then there's also the copy card, which adds a copy of the next card you play into your hand, which you can use to specialize in way more cannons, way more stun towers, maybe some draw cards, maybe some pick up sticks, and you just draw and get wood and draw and get wood and blah 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 blah. And then this variety is just really cool for replay value. Like I still get new synergies when I play all the time. Like just before I started recording this I had a deck that used pot, which is a card that just lets you draw 2 cards for some food and gold, and I just had lots and lots and lots of those, so I just kept drawing and kept drawing and kept drawing, built way too much stuff in one turn, and that felt really cool as well. But that brings me to the next issue, which is kind of just that there are too many inputs per turn, like the turns get very long. The start of the issue is obviously in your starting deck there's 2 copies of house, and every time you click on a house you draw another card, but then you have like 20-30 of them in late game, and it just makes your turn very long. The main issue there I think is that there is too much draw, so like the goal in the game is typically then to just play more cards instead of playing more powerful cards, which can turn the game into a bit of a drag late game. But it also has this weird side effect of like every time you draw a card it's a bit of a die roll, so it's like maybe you get another boom barrel, maybe you get the card that lets you draw your entire hand full of cards. Like you don't know what you're gonna get, and it keeps people hooked, including me, and it's pretty cool. I also noticed in playtests people just kept playing even after the game was over, and that's typically a good sign. Lastly, I want to talk about some things I would change if I were to take this project into Godot or something. The current meta is to just clump your buildings straight in the middle, which makes sense, but if there were like resource nodes all over the map and you'd have to mine them and then protect your mining outposts and stuff like that, you could have firstly more interesting city designs, and it would also make the night more interesting because you could be thinking maybe this certain mining outpost can be sacrificed so I can hold something more important in there. In older versions of this game I also had RTS units which could help in that decision making process. Overall I just want the night to be more chaotic and to somewhat feel more unfair. Like I don't want enemies to just like come, take a building and walk away. I want like stuff like this. Now I could probably keep talking about this game for like hours, but what's more important is that you scroll down and then you just like click on that link there and then you just play the game in your browser and you just have some fun. You tell me what you think. That's very important. Do that now. I'm gonna be spinning now for the outro.